All right, so for our last class, we will talk about therapy, right? So we tried to understand pretty much everything about human behavior, the physiological aspects, how our brain works, how our bodily systems work, some theories, psychological disorders, and now we get to therapy. Like, how do we actually help, right? What is sort of the idea on how to help people? Well, first thing we have is the grandfather of psychology, who is who? Who's the grandfather of psychology? Freud, okay, right? Remember that Freud is sort of the originator. Remember, Freud is a medical doctor, right? Freud wouldn't consider himself a psychologist. Medical doctors consider themselves to provide a cure. So Freud believed that he can cure you of your mental problem, he would say, right? And how would he do that? Well, he would do it with something called psychotherapy or psychoanalysis. All right? Psychoanalysis. When we say, well, what is psychoanalysis? You come into my office, you sit on the couch, you look away from me, I'm sitting at my desk, you're taking notes, and I say, hey, talk for 50 minutes straight. I talk about what? Just anything, your whole life. Talk about everything. Today, yesterday, growing up, 50 minutes straight. You say, like, well, what are you going to get from that? Well, along that way of just talking, which we call free association, some things are going to stick out. Automatic things. Remember we said that subconscious. Freud's whole point in this is to bring the unconscious conscious. Eventually, you're going to talk so much that something's going to come out that's noteworthy. And we say, you know, all right, that was one session. Well, what do you have? Well, like, I don't know. Come back. We'll see what else we got when you come back. Come back for weeks and weeks and weeks. Now, Freud would say, hey, if you stumbled on something and say, hey, Dr. Ross, I'm sorry, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'm like, no, why do you gotta go right now? What did you say right before you go? Right? I think, man, that might be important. Or you're like, oh, you know, so my mom and my dad, and you know, never mind, forget that. Anyone want to, like, no, that was important. Right? So if you skip on something, if you stop something, if you redirect the conversation, that is your unconscious mind saying, no, we want to move away from that combo, because that's not what I want to deal with. So eventually, these themes and patterns will come up. And you would say, you know what? I figured out your issue. The issue is mom and dad when you're 3 years old, your dad and your mom and your cousin, your sister, your brother, the bullies at school, or something traumatic happened. And we could cure that by providing a remedy for it. The remedy is for you to be aware of it. You weren't aware of it first. You didn't use back, I don't know what my problem is. You're like, now I know what my problem is. Let me solve my own problem. So Freud first believed that he can solve your problem. And then he'll say, well, tell me about dreams too. And so, you know, if you have a random conversation with a friend, like, oh my gosh, my dream was so weird last night. Freud would say, that's not enough. So you'll go back, hey, what does this dream mean? First, like, well, that's not enough. Remember we said we need a story. Dreams, multiple dreams over weeks. You'll say, I piece all these dreams together, and eventually it'll manifest your latent content, something hidden in your subconscious mind that's a desire, motivation, a fear of yours, something that you're not even aware of. Right? Then we can hack that brain to solve it. So that's really psychotherapy, psychoanalysis in a nutshell. Second, so we got people who say, well, Freud, that all sounds a little bit too easy. And so we got the humanists. So the other part would be humanistic sort of approaches to therapy, which is to say that, hey, you know, you can never get rid of anything that bad happened to you. It's always there, forever, never, never until you die. So what do? Well, all you could do is combat that thing to be the greatest individual you ever wanted to be, to reach your full potential self, right? So humanists believe in you setting these benchmarks for you to keep moving the needle. Like you're trying to get your degree, like you're focused. That is your goalpost right now. Get this degree, right? that degree, that's your ideal self for then. When you get the degree, get the job, new ideal self. Get the job, get the family, get the home, travel, cars, that's all that stuff. Right? So the humanists believe that if we create these goals and drives and missions, that eventually we say, you know what? The stuff that happened bad to us in the past no longer matters because we became our greatest selves, right? It was all part of the plan, right? So it's kind of like positive psychology. All right, so those are two approaches. But what I would say, hey, Freud got a lot of stuff right. Very controversial, but he got a lot of stuff right, in my estimation. So Freud believed that anything that you have a problem with in life is anxiety related. Anybody, well, what is anxiety truly at the core of it? He believes anxiety is unreleased energy. And that your body, remember we said we have sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous systems, up and down, right? Bring you up, calm you back down. That he says that's essentially the entire universe. That's all of existence. All of existence is a conflict, right? Order out of chaos. The universe is chaotic. Then it brings together order to make planets and stars. And now we get living species. Like, wow, that's interesting. It was all chaotic, now it's order. There's no evil without good. No such thing. There's no good without evil. There's no right without wrong. There's no left without right. So Freud truly believes that existence, your very existence, Nietzsche also believes this too, who is one, famous philosophers. Your very existence is conflict by nature. So if you say you don't want any problems, you don't exist. For you to exist, the whole goal is to manage the conflict. That's it, right? And so Freud believed that as you walk outside and your body automatically, your subconscious picks up danger, like, oh, this is a threat. Oh, I'm afraid of this. Oh, I'm happy about this. Your body automatically picks up like a radio antenna. And then that's your subconscious. It's automatic. That's how you were essentially born into to be. And then your conscious mind is to make sense of it. It's like, well, should I be afraid? How much value do I place on this thing? How much is it worth? Right? Should I have anxiety? Should I be happy? And so that conscious brain is to say what to do with this automatic information as you walk around and go through life. Make a decision, right? So Freud believed that we are nothing more than big energies, surrounded by a bunch of other energies, picking up on all types of energies, and we have to make a decision with what to do with the conscious brain. And that's why I say any sort of trauma that you would have is unreleased energy. It's pent up, right? Like a pent up muscle. You go get a massage or something to release it. And so think about that. So when you're going through life and you say, man, I feel bad today. I feel depressed, sad, happy, scared, anxiety about exams. You're like, well, it's automatic. You didn't choose to do that. But now you have to make a choice, right? And issue this choice. So the real anxiety is you can't make a choice. Or you make the wrong choice. At any time in your life, you say, I no longer believe that. I no longer believe I'm afraid of that. Any second, you can say. Any second in your life, you can say, I no longer want to be part of this relationship. Right? I no longer want to be afraid. I no longer want to be sad. I no longer want to be... You can, but it's the most difficult thing to do. But remember we say in order to create balance, because automatically you're being drawn down. Your body is essentially drawing down this battery, and now you have to do real stuff, thinking, energy, create energy to bring you back up, to move it past the needle of zero. So think of in life we're running at a deficit, right? Because Freud believed life is suffering by birth. You are born. You will 100% absolutely die. Freud said with that thought alone, that reality alone, being born to die, and everybody you ever loved was going to die too. Everybody. said that very thought alone creates that duality, that conflict, like, we're born, we're gonna die, so now we gotta make meaning, we gotta make purpose. Else, there's no reason to live. It would literally be pointless to live. So his thing was like, you have to create purpose in order to move past that deficit, that negative of very existence, right? So think about it. So I sum this all up for you to say, well, okay, you learn all the psychology stuff, great. But in essence, you really got to think a little bit deeper, philosophical about life in general, right? You say, well, I'm stressed about money. I bet money is an illusion. We made it up. We all agree with that. Most of this stuff in life is an illusion. The social media stuff, an illusion. But you value it so much, it gives you anxiety, right? It's a choice. You care so much about the stuff when you open your phone, your laptop, but literally that stuff doesn't matter. Everybody on there is gonna die. 1,000 years, nobody will remember any of those people's names. They won't even know they existed. Just like we don't know that maybe 1 trillion people who existed before 1,000 years today, right? So the point is to have a little bit more insight and really look past, almost kind of like the movie The Matrix. Anyone seen the movie The Matrix? Who's seen Matrix? Who's seen The Matrix? All right, a little bit. Anyway. By The Matrix, Smith, the agent, who's like the virus in the movie, he says he figured out the Matrix, right? Basically said the issue was choice. He said the people didn't know how to choose. They didn't know they had a choice. At any point in time, they could make a choice to change their life and alter it like that, or to make themselves feel better. But they can't, because in essence, they've really been taught not to. Or the external world is so powerful that it won't allow them to, right? Your phone is so powerful, it won't allow you to get sleep. You can't get real sleep. The notifications go off. You're not going to turn them off. You're going to have anxiety because you can go back on Instagram and look at everybody's awesome life and then compare it to yours, right? So in essence, unless you make some real choices, it's never gonna stop, right? So that's sort of the final point about psychology, right? This is automatic. You gotta find some meaning and purpose. All right, let's look at the exam. Turn the screen on, because I'm going to actually pull up the real exam and give you kind of an idea about everything that's on there, right? Okay. Got your notes out? Take your notes. All right. All right, so 50 questions. Each question is a half of a point. All right? Half of a point, 50 questions. First question is going to deal sort of with psychology as a scientific study. It's going to ask a question about that. Right? Ask you a question related to science as an actual scientific study. Next one is going to be about the scientific method. We talked about that like the first, second week of class. And it's going to ask you like an example. It's going to ask you like pick one that you feel is more of the scientific method than the other. The third one is about correlational research design. Remember we said correlation is just a relationship, how strong a relationship is to something else. Does it ask you a question about something? It's going to say, do you think this is a correlational design? Or which one? Pick one. That's a correlational design. And we say correlation is about how strong a relationship is to something else. next one's going to deal with manipulating one variable towards another, and that's going to ask you what kind of method is that? What kind of scientific method is relating one variable to another? All right, the next one's going to deal with picking samples for like a research study and how to assign those samples, like the people within, say, a study. Next one's going to simply ask you what is a sample. That's going to give you some choices. All right, next one's going to deal with impairment. It's going to give you an example of something that happened to someone, and it's going to ask you what kind of impairment it is. Okay? How are you impaired? Physically, visually, hearing, yada, yada. All right, the next one's going to talk about if you're damaged at a certain part in the brain, what will be affected by it. The next one's kind of the same question, the next one, so I'll skip to more. All right, the next set of questions is going to deal all about neurons. So the physiology of neurons, remember we talked about like action potential, myelin sheath, all those different components of a neuron and what they're used for. And that will be like the next few questions. All right, next one deals with hereditability, and it's going to ask you kind of like about identical twins and how they would relate to one another and different behavioral patterns. And that was from like week 2, I think we talked about. Next few just dealing with genes, so if you could learn more about like DNA stuff, they're not difficult questions, basic questions. Next one deals with, next couple ones deal with memory. Short-term, long-term memory, how they work. And also the models of memory. All right, next view deals with conditioning. Remember we said classical conditioning, operant conditioning. Is anything related to those? It's going to give you some examples and for you to pick which one would be which. And also reinforcement. When we talk about positive and negative reinforcements in order to change behavior. And stimulus and response. That's all part of classical and operant. Unconditioned and conditioned stimulus and response. Remember those. All right, next couple deal with fundamental attribution error. So make sure you just review what that is. And I was going to give you a couple questions on that. Next one deals with like cognitive dissonance. will deal with id, ego, superego, what they are. Next one deals with like introversion, extroversion, and neuroticism. Next one deals with social cognitive theory. So remember what that is. Next couple deals with, the next few deals with psychological disorders. It's going to ask you primarily what kind do you see in this question, or would it classify as a disorder? So it's going to ask you about phobias, anxieties, stuff like that. Next one deals with personality. And the final two deals with schizophrenia. So just make sure you review schizophrenia. We really didn't tackle as much as I wanted to. They're not hard questions. All right, that's it. Class is over, unfortunately. So yes, Monday the exam will be up, and I'll give you to the end of the day, but obviously we need to do it in the time frame that's allotted for the class. Everyone got the schedule, the final schedule? Okay. So if you need to do it in that framework, do it. If not, I'll still leave it open. And yeah, I'll see y'all later. Hopefully I see you in another class or